The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky, Chapter 3. Question by Ouspensky. How do you know how many centers there are? Answer from Gurdjieff. By observation. In the ordinary way, you can observe 4 different functions, which obviously come from 4 different sources, controlled by different principles. Self-observation shows this quite clearly, and after some time, you cannot mix them. Question. Why haven't modern psychologists come to that conclusion? Answer, because they do not know about it. The division of centers looks very simple, yet the fact that it is not known shows that the ordinary mind cannot discover it. Ordinary mind, if you take existing psychology, just feels something different, but cannot definitely say that this is one thing and that is another thing. This idea comes from schools, just as does the complete idea of the division of 4 states of consciousness. You can find this last idea in literature, but the description is quite different. So again, it comes from schools and must be explained orally. There are things which can be described in books, and there are other things which can never be rightly described. Question. So the idea of centers is an old idea? Answer. It is very old, but we cannot discover it until we are told about it. If we are told, we can observe ourselves and we can find that it is true, but by ourselves we cannot discover it. Facts prove this, for it has not yet been discovered. Question. Where are the centers situated? Answer. It does not matter because each center occupies the whole body. There is not a single cell in our body that is not controlled by all centers. This must not be taken too literally. For instance, you cannot say that intellect controls every cell, so there are limitations. But, speaking generally, each center controls the whole body in a different way. But we cannot know the physical side of ordinary observation. We can study functions, however, and that gives us all the material that is necessary. Question. Then, can one observe with the intellect? Answer. You can do nothing else. That is the only part of us which is to a certain extent under our control, so we can use the mind for observation. Later, perhaps you can train other centers to make observations, but that cannot come for a long time. Naturally, other centers must not be in the way. For instance, if you identify emotionally with something, it will prevent you from observing. You want to think about one thing, but it will constantly bring you to other thoughts, other associations. For a long time, you have to work from the intellectual center, but at the same time, we must understand that we cannot go far with this because it has definite limits. It will bring you to a certain point after which you cannot go farther unless you use the emotional center. But the emotional center has to be trained first. You must learn not to express negative emotions. And only if you do that for a sufficiently long time can other things be explained. Question. You cannot let your emotions guide you without your intellect, can you? Answer. Normally you could, but then we are not quite normal. So, they may guide us in the right way or a wrong way. There is no guarantee that they will guide us in the way that we want them to. We may want to go to one place, and our emotions may lead us somewhere else. Question. Emotions would have to develop an intelligence of their own? Emotions would have to develop an intelligence of their own? Answer. I quite agree with you, but what does it mean? It means, first of all, that you must learn to control the expression of all unpleasant emotions. Only then can you know emotionally what to do next. Question. You say that the thinking and the emotional functions are completely separate, but isn't it very difficult to tell the difference? Answer. No, it's not difficult at all. Only a little patience and observation are necessary. After a short time, you will see clearly what is thinking and what is feeling. Question. Are the 3 centers often working simultaneously? Answer: yes, but simultaneous may have different meanings. It's very rarely do they work simultaneously on the same subject. All the four functions can do happen simultaneously, but they work on different things. For example, of all the four functions working simultaneously on the same, an example of all the four functions working simultaneously on the same subject would be artistic creation. Owing to their working simultaneously, centers often get mixed. Yet it is possible to distinguish them. This is the beginning of self-observation and self-understanding. We have to understand the different functions and then begin to divide them. Question: why is it that the moving center can stop imagination? For instance, I find gardening or any physical work a help to stop it. Answer: it means that the same center was occupied with imagination that is occupied with gardening. It only proves that imagination is a function of moving center. Question: I cannot see the importance of the stress laid on centers. Answer: it's very important to see that our mind is divided into four minds, that there is no unity in us, that the four minds or functions are quite different. This alone gives one a different picture of oneself. Question: how can one distinguish between emotion and instinct? Answer: it is a very important question and must be solved by one's own observation and study. Instinctive emotions are always connected with something physical. Since modern psychology does not separate instinctive emotions from other emotions, there is bound to be some difficulty in understanding the difference. But when you know that they are different, it is possible to distinguish between them. Is there anything that controls unruly organs or cells? Answer: yes. Instinctive center. Do you think we would be alive for half an hour if instinctive center did not work? It knows the right and wrong work of each organ. It always tries to make them work rightly. We think organs work by themselves. This is imagination. They are controlled by instinctive center. This is instinct in the real sense in relation to man. Question: has the quality of intellect any bearing on the acquisition of consciousness? Answer: yes, because we must begin with intellect. Our intellectual center is better developed or more under its control. The emotional center is more irresponsible. So, since we have more command of our intellectual center, we have to use it until either we become more conscious or learn to use other functions more efficiently and control them better than we do now. At present, we have no control over instinctive and emotional functions, and only a little over moving function. External influences move them. We cannot be glad or angry without cause, and a cause means something external. Later work must be in the emotional center because the chief energy is in it. Intellectual center is the only auxiliary, but at the present it is all we have. I want to tell you a little more about the centers, which will help you understand the situation. Some centers are divided into two halves, positive and negative. This division is very clear in the intellectual and instinctive centers. If the intellectual center is in the intellectual center, it is a yes and no, affirmation and negation. All the work of the intellectual center consists of comparing. The division in the instinctive center is quite plain. Pleasure, pain. All instinctive life is governed by this. At a superficial glance, it seems that the emotional center also consists of two halves, pleasant and unpleasant emotions. But it is not really so. All our violent and depressing emotions, and generally most of our mental suffering, has the same character. It is unnatural, and our organism has no real center for these negative emotions. They work with the help of an artificial center. This artificial center, a kind of swelling, is gradually created in us from early childhood, for a child grows surrounded by people with negative emotions and imitates them. And I think it'd be good to pause here. And hope you're enjoying this. If you are, please click like and subscribe. And till soon.